If you're about to buy a domain to support your new business, you certainly want to watch this video before you click buy. Most people make the wrong choice at this step because it's not just about the domain name. It's about your DNS, your email, your website, and all the tools that have to plug into that domain so your business runs smoothly. In this video, I will walk you through what you need to know before buying a domain, what to look for, what to avoid, and how to build a setup that minimizes your efforts in the long run. Hey, I'm Paul Collin, mechanical engineer, former VP of Sales and Marketing and founder of Collin, where we help ambitious businesses thrive with Zoho and smart automation. Today, I'm sharing with you the buying domain guide I wished I had when I launched my first business. Let's get into it. Say I want to register Collin.consulting for my consulting business. I have different options to buy this domain. I can buy it with Namecheap, GoDaddy, Hostinger, Zoho, Cloudflare, and there are many of them. But which choices sets me up for long-term success? To make that choice, we are aiming for 5 criteria. First is cost effectiveness. We want to take into account the costs of purchasing a domain, its annual renewal, and any hidden extra that some providers try to upsell you. Second is security. Your domain should include a free SSL certificate so your site runs on HTTPS. It gives trust with your visitors, it protects the data that they send you, and it's a basic requirement for many modern tools that you can be using associated to your website. Third is privacy. When you buy a domain, you share personal information that you may not want to, such as your name, your email, and sometimes your phone and address with the domain seller. And it's because the domain owner should always be reached out in case someone wants to report that you are spamming them with your domain, for example. With a good privacy protection, people can still reach out to you if needed, but without exposing your personal details in public who is records. In a sense, your domain provider acts as the gatekeeper. They include the contact email of your domain, but that's their email, meaning that if someone is trying to reach out to you, the domain provider is going to receive that email, check if it's legitimate, and if so, it's going to forward it to you. Fourth is simplicity. Accounting is already complex in itself. If you have one provider for domains, another for hosting, another for email, and another for DNS, you multiply the invoices, the logins, and the admin tasks that are associated to your business. When possible, we want fewer suppliers, each covering more of the puzzle without necessarily putting all the eggs in the same basket. And finally, performance. A domain name alone has no performance. What matters is the infrastructure behind it. Fast websites and reliable email are critical for sales, support, and overall customer experience. So you don't want to overlook how quickly people can reach your website and send or receive emails from you. And we have now identified 5 criteria: cost, security, privacy, simplicity, and performance. Now let's look at the flow. First, I build Collin.consulting, I connect it to a website host and build a website, whereas in parallel, I get an email provider, set up the emails, and send them using, for example, Paul@Collin.consulting. Easy, right? To be honest, that's not the way it works. There is a layer in the middle that makes all of this work together, which is the DNS information. Think of DNS as the phone book of the internet. When someone types your domain into their browser, they're not going straight to your website host. Their device first runs a DNS lookup on the web to find out where the website server associated to your domain is. The DNS server replies with the right address, and the user's browser is connected to your website. Same with the email. When someone sends you an email, the mail server runs a DNS lookup to know where the emails for that domain are to be delivered. The DNS server points to the email server, and you get the email into your inbox. So DNS is the central hub between the internet, your website, and your emails. That's why where you buy your domain and where the DNS lives matters so much for the long term. And now that we know the flow, let's build the big picture. First, regardless of your field of activity, your business needs more than just emails. You might need a CRM for B2B sales, accounting or invoicing tools, a password manager, a Google Workspace for file storage, and other systems as you grow. Many of these tools rely on DNS. I give you an example. Say you want to use Brevo to send a business card to all of your customers. You will need to associate Brevo to your DNS to be able to run that campaign. In my case, I will use Zoho One as my reference stack. Zoho One covers CRM, everything related to marketing, support, finance, automations, and more. So I activate only what I need, every tool connects with the rest of the suite, and as my business grows, I don't need extra budget for new tools. I just need additional user seats. If you have other business needs or preference, such as using Google Workspace or a specialized CRM, no problem. Most important to us is to have a process that helps us make the right decisions consistently. Let's move on to the website side of the architecture. In that section, I'm choosing to use Hostinger as my reference point because it's a very reliable long-term solution. It's secured, creates automatic backups, offers a clean interface, and provides straightforward deployments. It's exactly what we are looking for when we want to develop a new website for our business. Now let's break it down. We have 4 different options. The classic WordPress, which gives maximum flexibility and a huge plugin ecosystem, but needs regular updates and ongoing maintenance. Next, we have AI websites. You describe your business, and the system generates a full website for you. Also, having your website completely created from scratch using AI sounds very exciting. The fact that we are missing feedback about how it's going to behave in the long run, for example, how do you handle forms, SEO, security, and so on, makes me a little bit hesitant at this stage, even though it really feels like it's the future. Lovable is the reference in this space, but Hostinger offers something very similar and is reliable. Now, something that can feel like a compromise is AI-assisted WordPress. So basically, you use WordPress technology, which powers 40% of the websites in the world today, and you include AI feature so that you get faster at developing your own website. With that said, it remains a WordPress website, meaning that you will still have to put some efforts into the maintenance, such as upgrading the plugins, putting efforts into security, and so on. Finally, the integrated CMS. Tools like Zoho Sites and Hostinger's native builder are helping you develop your own website. Since it is developed in-house, there is a full control over the code that is being developed, and there is much less variability in comparison to a WordPress where you have multiple plugins and they are not on the same version, so you have to keep maintaining all these plugins. When you have an integrated CMS, it's more basic, but you go much faster, you have less variability, spend less time into maintenance, so this could be a good choice, but we will keep all 4 families in the picture while we organize the rest of the architecture around them. Now let's place all the pieces we have identified onto the map. On the website host side, we can use Zoho, we can use Hostinger for all different purposes, all available if we want to focus on an AI website. Related to the domain, we see that Zoho, Hostinger, GoDaddy, Namecheap, and Portbun are available options. However, we see that Zoho and Hostinger, since they are used in the website host, start to make more sense, especially related to the infrastructure. All of them offer the basics: domain purchase, renewal, and built-in DNS panel. So we have many possible combinations. The question is, which one works best in practice? Now, even though every domain provider gives you a basic DNS interface, there is one extra player worth adding to the picture: Cloudflare. Cloudflare can replace the DNS panel from your host or registrar and add an extra layer of performance and security on the top. While the default DNS from Hostinger, Zoho, Namecheap, and GoDaddy is perfectly functional, Cloudflare can speed up your site, improve reliability, and protect you from a variety of attacks and bad traffic. Cloudflare also offers to buy domains directly from them. Now, let's see the impact Cloudflare can really have on your architecture and why we should care about potentially deploying it as part of our infrastructure. Imagine your business is located in Berlin, but your DNS and website hosts are physically located in Amsterdam. When someone in Berlin visits your site, their request has to travel to Amsterdam and back. The extra distance adds delay. So if your website is just a digital business card, that delay might not matter too much. But if your website converts prospects, builds authority, or supports your sales process, those extra milliseconds can hurt the experience and eventually your SEO as your audience grows. Now let's compare without Cloudflare and with Cloudflare. On the left-hand side, I have without Cloudflare, and every visitor in Berlin has to reach your DNS and hosting in Amsterdam. More distance, more latency, a slower feeling for first-time visitors. On the right, I have Cloudflare enabled. The request is handled by Cloudflare server in Berlin. DNS responses come from the nearest node, and Cloudflare keeps cached elements close to the visitors. Your host is still in Amsterdam, but your users experience a faster and more consistent website. And here is a subtle point. When you run a Google speed test with your website, it always feels really fast, and it's because Google always tests your website with the nearest test server it has. As a result, your speed calculations always seems interesting, but the reality is anyone located in another country will feel a completely different experience, and it will come unnoticed. Now that we have seen a performance impact, let's look at how Cloudflare behaves inside your DNS configuration. Each DNS record in Cloudflare can be set to Proxied. Proxied is the orange one. It records route traffic through Cloudflare's network. That's where you get protection from attacks, traffic filtering, and additional security features before the request reaches your hosting provider. DNS Only records bypasses the proxy entirely. They are used for services that must talk directly to their own infrastructure, like email, your CRM. Remember before when I mentioned Brevo to make email campaigns? That's exactly where the DNS Only lands. In my case, I'm using bookings, forms, meeting, orders, and subscriptions that are connected to my domain through DNS Only. Now back to Cloudflare. This separation means your website gets Cloudflare's protection while your business tools keep working normally on direct DNS routes. That's what makes Cloudflare such an effective DNS manager. It adds protection where you need it, and it's completely free. With Cloudflare added, we finally have our full picture. Cloudflare sits in front of DNS and can even be the domain provider itself. From here, we can start refining our options. The first adjustment is on the website host side. AI website builders like Lovable are attractive and economical, but using them as a foundation of a new business is a bold move. We have fewer battle-tested operations compared to providers like Hostinger or Zoho. Hostingers already covers this category inside a more established ecosystem. So I'm removing Lovable from the options because it introduces unnecessary risk at the foundation of a new business. And now that the architecture is clear, we can compare the structural setups instead of individual tools. At this stage, I'm only looking at where the website is hosted, where the domain is registered, who manages the DNS, whether Cloudflare's proxy is used, which business infrastructure is behind, the number of suppliers invoices, and software tools involved. Our table shows 6 realistic configurations: Hostinger with Cloudflare, a diversified Hostinger setup, Zoho with Cloudflare, and a diversified Zoho setup. Now we can filter these options based on my specific situation. I encourage you to do the same exercise for your own business. I run Zoho consulting services in Europe, so the website and email setup directly support customer trust and daily operations. With that in mind, some configurations become less relevant. I removed the Hostinger setup without Cloudflare. It's valid for many businesses, but in my case, the extra stability and protection from Cloudflare worth it. I will also set aside the option where Zoho manages everything, including the DNS. It would actually be a good and convenient choice, but I will opt for Cloudflare speed and extra layer of incoming traffic control. Let's keep eliminating. I believe there isn't much value in diversifying the purchase of my domain, and I prefer minimizing the number of my suppliers. So I will eliminate GoDaddy, Namecheap, and Porkbun. Finally, It makes more sense to me to buy my domain directly at my website host, so in the case of hosting a Proxied, I will eliminate Zoho. And with 4 configurations left, the next step is to drop the one that doesn't have enough value. The option I remove here is Cloudflare as the domain provider for a Hostinger website. If the website is hosted on Hostinger, it's simply more practical to keep the domain there too. Less friction, simpler support, and fewer moving parts. We are now down to 3 realistic setups: Hostinger with Cloudflare, Zoho with Cloudflare, and diversified Zoho setup. More importantly, the diagram shows how each option connects the pieces together. Across these 3, we keep invoices limited to 1 or 2 suppliers, and only 2 software providers in play. Security and performance are covered by Cloudflare. Simplicity is preserved thanks to the low number of suppliers. Privacy is handled by Hostinger, Zoho, or Cloudflare. The last big question is cost, and that's what the next slide addresses. Hey, quick pause before we look at the pricing table. If this breakdown is helping you make clearer tech decisions for your business, please take a second to subscribe and like this video. It really supports the work behind these deep dives and will help more entrepreneurs avoid painful technical mistakes. And this pricing table brings everything together by comparing the 3 Hostinger website options with their long-term costs. Cloudflare DNS is free in every scenario. I also added the yearly cost of Zoho One per employee so you can see how your website budget fits into your broader business infrastructure. When you look across the columns, a clear pattern appears. WordPress Premium and AI WordPress both require ongoing maintenance. Many modern website features like clean YouTube embeds, CRM-connected forms, and advanced performance tools often come from paid plugins. Once you add those costs on the time spent managing updates, compatibility, and security, a WordPress setup can easily reach around €400 per year. Hostinger's Horizon Starters reduces the technical complexity, but at €421 per year, it is still the highest cost option. On the Zoho side, however, costs are significantly lower. In fact, Cloudflare and Zoho both land at €43 per year because neither company makes money on selling the domain itself. The difference is that with Zoho, I get a single supplier for everything, since Cloudflare DNS is free. For Colin.consulting, focused on Zoho consulting services, that makes the choice straightforward. I need speed, reliability, and predictable cost with a website that supports credibility from day one. Zoho Sites lets me focus on design and content without dealing with speed, security, backups, or updates. I can build the first version in-house, and as my business grows and my ICP and positioning evolve, I can define new requirements later for a more advanced site. In the meantime, I'm saving roughly €400 per year, which is essentially the cost of a Zoho One seat that includes over 45 business apps I can activate whenever needed. If your stack is different, for example, WordPress on the Hostinger, Google Workspace for email, and Cloudflare for DNS, then Cloudflare may be the cheapest option, while buying the domain through Hostinger may be the most convenient. Eventually, your choice depends on your stack. So what should you be doing before buying a domain? Here is a quick checklist. Decide your stack first, meaning your website, email, and core tools. Don't buy the domain in isolation. Choose a long-term DNS strategy, either your host DNS or a specialist like Cloudflare. And finally, evaluate suppliers with the 5 criteria: cost, security, privacy, simplicity, and performance. If you follow these 3 steps, your domain becomes a strong foundation for your business. If you want more deep dives, subscribe, hit the like buttons, and drop your questions in the comments. I will respond to every one of them. Thanks for watching. I will see you on the next one.